Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at the first submission by Jean of her horse Naya. Now we're going to see her ride through a couple of dressage tests, which she did very well with. She's been bringing this horse along for a while now. This horse was an 8-year-old pasture ornament, as she said when she got this horse, who'd had an injury when she was younger and turned out and really hadn't done anything. And unfortunately, Jean lost a horse that she had, and this one became available to her, and she decided to pick it up, and she's been rehabbing it ever since, and I must say doing a really nice job. So just looking at this walk here, this is all quite good, and I like how, even though you're riding in a bit of a curved rein there, you're releasing it when you need to at the right time. Here she gets a little bit short in the walk there, but you seem to recognize that and let it right back out in the stretch, and that's exactly what you want to do. Remember that our goal in all of this lateral work that we do is to keep the same swinging walk that we have when we just have an active stretching walk, once we get that. Now getting into this trot work, what we're actually doing here is riding through a dressage test, which is why she's stopping here at this point. So she's going to ride through a couple of dressage tests that she's practicing. Now really everything is going pretty well with this horse. What I would like to see is just a little bigger trot. She's actually staying over her back pretty well considering how slowly she's going here. But we'd like to see just a little bit bigger trot. But this isn't bad at all. I mean, this is really quite good. Once again, has a little difficulty there into that transition. So generally, we'd like to see a little more swing in the trot than we're getting here, but the horse is staying over its back pretty well. Even though it is going quite slowly. And a little too slowly. And into a canter here, why this is a little bit on the slow side. Just like the trot, the horse is actually staying pretty nicely over its back, considering how little impulse it is for these movements, but it's not terrible. I mean, when you consider what we usually see in the Western world these days, where horses are literally trotting in front, walking behind, cantering in front, trotting behind, completely disunited, and half of them look like they're dead lame to boot. So compared to most of what we see in the Western world these days, or much of it, this horse is a big improvement over a lot of what I see. Now it's a little tough making those downwards transition there. The horse kind of slowed and then kind of dropped its back up out from underneath you because you were just simply going so slowly. So our goal in these kind of transitions, now once again, this thing right here, these turns on the haunches are really just too slow. You see how the horse has stuck its legs, so all it really did is spin around. In a correct turn on the haunches like that, the horse lifts its legs up with each stride. In other words, it keeps the same step as the walk. Because if you don't, it does what you just did there, which was to twist the hocks, and that can really put a lot of pressure on the hocks to do those movements like that, where the horse just basically just twists around with its legs stuck into the ground. So the biggest thing I see in this whole tape in terms of what really needs to improve is just those turns on the haunches. I mean, this is all pretty good, but considering how slow it's going, I would like to see the horse working in a little bigger working trot. But having said that, this is not too bad for a horse, Western horse going at this speed. And the horse is staying over its back nicely, but I would like to see a little more pace in order to really get the horse to develop much. You're going to need to get a little bigger swing over the horse's back. Same thing here into the canter. It's really not bad work at all. And once again, this is not a huge moving horse either, but she is stretching her neck out forward. I think she can develop a lot more yet than what she is here, but considering what you're doing here, this is not bad at all. A little bit hollow in that, and once again, it's all just a little bit under impulse for what I would like it to be ultimately, that is to get the horse to develop a little more than what you're doing here. that we develop a little more thrust off the ground. And as we come back to the trot, it's all just a little bit flat-footed. So I'd like to see that, though that she didn't hollow as badly in that downward transition as she did in the previous ones. So watch again here. See how the horse just twists its hocks? That's not how a horse is supposed to do a turn on the haunches. The horse should lift its leg with each step as it comes around. That is the back legs, instead of spinning its hocks like that. So you can imagine that if you spin like that on that hock, how much damage you could do to the inside of the horse's hock by spinning it into the ground like that. So just beware of that. Other than that, everything really looks quite good in this. For a Western rider, your saddle looks a little bit long for this horse, but as you said, you have a hard time fitting a saddle to this horse. So it's not terrible. If I were going to look at it from a saddle fitter's point of view, they'd probably say it's a little bit too long because the back of it's almost on the hip bones there. So I liked a lot about that. The horse, as I said, even for going as slow as you're going, is staying over its back pretty well. I like how when you come back to walk, it goes right back into a nice stretch. You've certainly done a really great job of rehabbing this horse. Now I see you shifting around there in your saddle there a little bit, which tells me that maybe that saddle isn't a great fit. If you feel like you're going off to one side all the time and have to keep correcting that, you've probably got some kind of little bit of a saddle fitting issue going on there. Now, once again, this is just a little too flat. See how the horse now is just really kind of pulling itself with its shoulders. So that's not quite enough trot, even for the Western thing that you want to do here. I'd like to see a little more swing in it. Now, coming towards us there, we can see how that horse paddles a little bit with its left front leg. But just know that the more you get the horse working over its back, the less that will interfere with the horse's movement or cause a problem down the road. So just a little under impulse here. I just want to see a little bigger swinging trot. Now, having said that, once again, now that's more like it right there. Now that looks like a better trot there when the horse gets over its back. That's really how I'd like to see you there, like that. That's kind of the minimal that I'd like to see this trot moving. So if you could keep that consistent, there it got a little bit too slow again. Now it's pulling with the shoulders a little bit too much. I like that bigger trot that you just had a moment ago. But even at this slow speed, the horse is keeping the underside of its neck quite relaxed. It's got a lot of flexion in its hocks. And even though it's a little on the flat side here, this is really not bad at all for the type of work that you're doing here. Just could be a little bit more forward. As I said, like you did across that one diagonal. That's where I'd like to see it all. Of course, the thing to realize is, once again, that it doesn't matter what kind of saddle you're in. Correctly trained horses are trained in exactly the same way, no matter what kind of saddle that you're riding them in. There's really no difference between English riding and Western riding if you're doing it correctly, other than the fact that Western riders tend to ride with the reins in one hand at times. But actually, upper-level dressage horses can do the same thing. If you go back and look at the old Spanish riding schools book, they considered that the test, that you had to ride with the reins all in one hand and you held the whip in your other hand straight up, so that you weren't having the effect of being able to use the whip. So go back and look at some of those old clips from the Spanish riding school from days gone by. Good walk. I love how it comes back to the walk here. But you've done a really great job with this horse. We've taken an 8-year-old out of the pasture and who had never been trained correctly, and do what you've done with it here shows that you've really understood what it is we're looking for. And even though you're working at a bit of a curved bit here, though, with shanks on it, you're doing a very good job of just keeping the horse light in the reins all the time. That is, by releasing, you're never keeping any backwards tension on the horse. So remembering once again that that's really the difference in whether a bit is severe or not, is the rider's hands. It has little to do with the with the bit in the horse's mouth. I mean, you can tear up a bit horse's mouth. See once again how the hocks spin. So what you want to do is practice those by walking into them, and try to walk a little smaller circle with the hind legs a little bit at the beginning, so you get the horse to step up and down with the hind legs, so the horse doesn't just spin its hocks like that. And once again, there's a little better trot. So I like this trot that you do. Maybe they're asking for a lengthening of stride there. I'm not sure. I don't have the test in front of me. But I really like that, that after that work, you get this little bigger trot. And even here it's a little bigger than it was before, and a little better. I just like to see it, I say that one moment on that one diagonal, I saw it look a little better and really got up underneath herself a little more and had a little more movement. This is just all a little bit on the too slow side to get the horse really thrusting up through its back. It's kind of pulling. You see how when she slows down, she really starts to grab with her front end there and pull with those shoulders a bit. Not a bad canter here. Once again, I like this canter better than the canter we saw a few minutes ago, which was a little bit too slow and lumbering along. This one has a little more forward movement to it, and she's getting over her back most of the time here. Once in a while, she comes up a little too high, like right there, and tends to drop out from underneath you a little bit, as she did coming out of that corner. So same thing in the canter. I just like to see that canter be a little bit larger and a little more coming through from behind. So it comes up and balances you a little better and gives me more of a sense of that it's going somewhere. But this was all really good work for your first submission. I think you did a great job. Once again, main thing is look at those turns on the haunches, because those are the biggest things that are not going well, and that they're just spinning around in the hocks, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the horse to lift the legs up. But a lot of the rest of this was really quite good. That one place that we saw when the horse really got moving across the diagonal is really more like where we'd like it to be all the time. But you've done a great job of rehabbing this horse. Just get a little more swing in the trot, and you're really going to have a beautiful horse here that's working really, really well. You've done a great job with it. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. See you next time.